Hello, it's me again. I got cut off in the first part of this video. In the second part, I'm going to pick up right where I left off and then look at a couple of other student examples of student work. I decided to share a video that I made last semester about the quiz. I looked at it, it looked pretty good, so I'm just going to go with the one I made last semester. So that video, the one where I walk you through the answers to the questions from the quiz, is up on D2L, and I'll email it to you. But this is just the second part of my discussion of the rubric for the argument summary homeworks. Okay, so let's go back to where I ended the first part, which was looking at this second submission. And as I said at the end of the first part of the video, this last paragraph is a good instance of using an example to explain the connection between Heathwood's central claim and the reasons he provides in support of that claim. This is the example of the cherry pie, where I might not be aware of the fact that eating the pie will do me harm. And so according to the desire theory, I would be benefited by the satisfaction of my desire. But in the case of the pie that might kill me, that's clearly not the case. Even though I desire the pie, since I'm allergic to it, satisfying that desire will not benefit me. And so this is an important example because it poses a potential problem or objection to the desire satisfaction theory. And so Heathwood has to respond to it. He has to explain why it would not benefit me to satisfy the desire to eat the pie, even though he seems to have argued that every time I satisfy a desire of mine, I benefit from it. Okay, so the student here does a nice job of using that example to explain the objection and explain how Heathwood defends himself from the objection. And that's another way of explaining the connection between his central claim and the reasons in support of his claim, right? So going back to the rubric, just to remind you, this third thing that I'm asking you to do, right? The cherry pie is an example that helps explain that connection between the claim is that subjectivism is the best view of welfare in comparison to other theories like objectivism. And the example of the cherry pie suggests that maybe subjectivism is false, and so he has to show why the example of the cherry pie does not undermine his reasons for supporting subjectivism. Okay, so that's an example. It's also a place where a passage in the text is being indirectly cited. So sort of two things are happening in that paragraph that I'm looking for in your summaries. Okay, before I move on to the next one, this last paragraph, I think that going in depth and refining his points with the informed desire theory really helped his argument. This was a response to one of my questions. And so, and I should have said earlier in the video that this particular submission combined the summary with the answers to the questions that I asked. So this is like a combination of part 1 and 2. Okay, the first submission I showed you was just, remember, this was just the part 1, and then the student did the questions as a separate part. Okay, this combines the summary with the answers to the questions. And I think the student did a nice job of combining them into one. So this earned an A as well. The summary part, the part that's summarizing the argument, I think accomplished the 4 things that I'm looking for. But at the very end, this is sort of going beyond the summary and analyzing how well Heathwood defended himself. And the student didn't do a lot with this paragraph, but I like that the student went there, right, and tried to explain what it is that helped his argument, right, and expressing the student's point of view on what it is that helped his argument. That was something I asked you to do in the questions. You don't have to do that in the summary, although, right, it's relevant. Part of your summary can be saying, like, this is the strongest part of his argument, or this is the weakest part of his argument, right? You can sort of develop that idea as part of summarizing someone's argument. But I'm not expecting you to kind of criticize the argument or expand it. I just want, the goal is just to do as much as you can in in 250 words or so, uh, identifying the central claim and the reasons given in support of it, explaining the connection between the reasoning and the conclusion, and then making reference to the text to support your interpretation. Okay, and I thought this submission did a good job with that. Here's another one. Oops, this is number 3. So I have 2 more. Let me go 3 and 4, sorry. So Heathwood gives the argument that the subjectivist view of welfare is the better way to go, which states that we only get a benefit from something only when we have a stake in it, positive emotion toward it, or interest in it for it. Okay, I like the opening sentence, right? It identifies the main claim. It identifies the kind of the main idea and claim of Heathwood's article. And then it moves quickly to the second part of the summary in support. So what supports the claim, right? Heathwood first distinguishes concepts that are different from welfare. That's a useful point. I'm not sure yes, I think that's an important point. One thing to think about when you're writing your summaries is like what's crucial to understanding the argument and what's sort of secondary. He states that some things make a better life of living without benefiting excellence and a gift talent can be seen as good, but not necessarily for the individual manifesting it, and the meaning of life can vary from welfare. These are good points. It's not clear that this is the most important thing to point to in terms of what's supporting his argument. He does this to show that these things are separate from how well off someone is. He also gives definitions of how the subjectivist and objectivist views differ and gives examples of it. That sentence there is, I think, the more crucial part of his argument, right? And so the summary should focus more on that. Like, how does he distinguish the subjectivism from the subjectivist view from the objectivist view? What examples does he give? So this is a place where the student could have given more concrete examples instead of just referencing examples. And give one of the examples in the summary, while giving the benefits of his view and the flaws that others claim it has. So this sentence, I like what the student is doing here, but it's a little too vague. It's a little too generic. There aren't any specific examples. He states that objectivists claim that some things that are beneficial to us can be good for us, even if the person never desired them. That is a good statement of the objectivist view. The objectivist says that it's possible that one could want and desire something that is wrong, to which Heathwood goes against the counter-argument by saying that while it may be wrong, the situation is something that is beneficial for that person. Okay, that sentence is a little unclear. I see what the student's trying to do. They're trying to explain how Heathwood distinguishes himself from the objectivist in his defense of subjectivism. But it was a little unclear what the connection is, right? Or how the argument goes. So that was a little fuzzy. Lastly, he supports his subjectivist view by stating that the desire want to do something or for something only benefits the individual, has a genuine attraction to it rather than voluntarily doing something and getting no benefit from it. Okay, what I would say about that last sentence is this is where he defines what he means by desire. And in defining what he means by desire, right, that's part of his way of defending subjectivism. But but this last sentence, I think, doesn't really capture the central line of reasoning or explain the central line of reasoning. What it does is explain or define a term. And he correctly identifies the way that Heathwood defines the term. But the student could have done more to explain how this definition of desire, right, supports his view of his subjectivist account of welfare, or what he calls the desire satisfaction theory. So again, I think the student did a good job. This, again, it's sort of between a B and an A. I think this student also submitted answers to questions in part 2. So this was just part 1. So I think overall the student earned an A for this, but the summary itself, is on the fence between a B and an A because, well, for one thing, there isn't a direct reference to the text. Okay. I can tell that the student is in the text, but no quotations, no page references. And while the student does a good job identifying the main argument and identifying some of the ways that Heath would provide support, there's not enough explaining the connection between the reasoning that Heathwood develops and the conclusion that he draws. And so, like, there's not enough concrete examples. He does at the end, or the student does at the end, define a term, explain how Heathwood defines one of his central terms. But there could be more of that here. Okay. So finally, this last one, in faring well and getting what you want. I like that the student opens with the title of the article that's being written about. That's a good thing to do, and the author's name. He elaborates on his ideas and opinions on whether welfare is subjective or objective. That's a good sentence, right? It does capture the sort of topic, right? There's a kind of debate going on here, and that's the debate: is welfare objective or subjective? Subjectivists believe that things that benefit our life only hold value when what we want interests us deeply and keeps a positive attitude along the way. Okay, good. Here the student is trying to define what subjectivism means and then draws a distinction with the objectivist. That's a good move. Heathwood takes the subjectivist side, yes, stating that subjective, and here's a nice reference to the text, providing support. He justified his claim to the reader. Okay, I like that sentence, like providing support for his claim. What is the claim? That subjectivism is the way to go, that welfare is subjective. He justifies this by saying that you have to prefer or like something for it to benefit you in life. Well, that's the claim, right? But how does he support that claim is sort of what I'm looking for. That's his claim, that you have to prefer or like something for it to benefit you in your life. But why believe that that's true? What supports that claim? He gives examples of freedom. So that's a good move, right? The example of, but maybe be more specific, describe the Charlie example a little better, stating that if you have no interest in having or desiring freedom, then how can that improve your life overall? Okay, good. Again, it would be better if the example was described in more detail, but I like that the student moves to that example as part of the support for the argument. Heathwood gives his opinion. Stay away from the word opinion. Heathwood is not just giving his opinion. He's giving an argument, right? So he's making a claim and providing reasons for that claim. That's not the same as an opinion, right? An opinion is just a statement without anything to back it up. All right. So it depends. In some sense, we're always expressing our opinions, but I want to reserve the word opinion for a claim that's not backed up by a line of reasoning. So when you make a claim and back it up with a line of reasoning, you're doing more than expressing your opinion. You're making an argument. So anyway, that's a small point. So he gives his opinion on the question of welfare. I would say he makes a case for his view about the nature of welfare. He makes an argument, right, in defense of a view about welfare. Okay, saying that the question is narrow-minded. That's a kind of misreading. The question of welfare is more narrow than the question of the good. Heathwood thinks that there are ways of evaluating the goodness of a person's life that involve maybe more objective qualities like morality, right? Being moral might make your life more good, but it doesn't necessarily benefit you. It doesn't contribute to your welfare. So welfare is one aspect of the good life, I guess. So the question of what makes life good is a wider question. It's a bigger question. It involves more elements, right? The question of what contributes to a person's welfare is a narrower question. Okay. In everyday life, we each come across things that make life better. However, we don't need them to survive. Here's a place where it's interesting, but the student here seems to be moving away from summarizing Heathwood and just sort of expressing this a different point of view, referring to this as manifesting excellence, being very excellent at something. Okay, now we're coming back to Heathwood, but how is this relevant to his argument? It's not clear. Using the example of basketball, a person could be extremely talented at it, yet have no real deep connection with the sport. True. Okay, these are all good points, but how does it support his argument? Tying things up, Heathwood, okay, that's it. This is a moment where the student is trying to kind of draw the connection, but it's not clear what the connection is. Trying to tie things up, okay, but I like what the student is trying to do here, but could have done it better. Tying things up, Heathwood explained that many subjectivists, including himself, redefine the theory of welfare. Well, why? right? The theory of welfare, the subjectivist theory of welfare has to be